Okay, in this project, we're going to make an object in Photoshop and we're going to save it out with no background. So first thing we want to do is open Photoshop. I'm going to start a new file here, create new. I'm just using 720 pixels by 540 pixels. Everything else staying the same. Click create. Okay, and there's my screen there. And so here I'm going to just make a tennis ball, and we'll save it out. It'll just be a tennis ball with no background behind it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is unlock the background layer by double clicking on it, typing background. And then I'm going to change that color to black. So I change my foreground to black, fill it in with my paint bucket. Good to go. Okay, next up I'm going to create a new layer. So you just click the new layer button there on the bottom of your layers window. And we're just going to use the circular marquee tool here. And I'm just going to fill that in with the color that approximates a tennis ball. So I'm going to change my foreground to a green that will accompany that. Grab my paint can, fill that in. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to create a new layer. So deselect, Control D. Now on my new layer, I'm going to use the marquee selection tool again to make an elliptical shape. And I'm just going to then fill that in with white. All right, and so now what I can do is grab my marquee tool again and go right in the center of that selection and just move that selection over a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is just hit delete. And so I've deleted most of the ellipsis there, except I kept the white on the edge there for the stripe. So now what I can do is go to my tennis ball layer, grab my magic wand tool and select all of the green. Then go back to my other layer and then choose under select, choose invert to select everything outside of the area of the tennis ball. Now I can grab my eraser and I can erase everything on the outside of that round selection because I'm on the correct layer. And it won't even touch any of the information inside the ball. So now I can take this layer and duplicate it by dragging it to my Create a New Layer tab. Grab my Move tool and take that stripe that I just duplicated, move it over. Then I can change that. I can flip it, go to Edit, Transformation, or Transform. We're going to flip horizontally, or flip horizontal. Click there, and notice there it's already lined up, so I eyeballed that perfectly. So now what I want to do is I want to just squash the layers down to one layer, okay? Except I don't want the background, so I'm going to turn the eyeball off on the background layer. And then all the other layers that are visible, I'm going to scrunch down to one layer. And I do that by going up to Layer, choosing Merge Visible. And notice now we only have two layers now. We have the tennis ball and we have the background. Okay, so the final step is to turn off the eye on the background, and we're going to export this out as a PNG. So File, Export, choose Export As. Make sure PNG is selected and transparency is checked. We're going to click Export. Now we can name it. We're going to call this tennis ball, and just make sure it's a PNG. PNG is the file you want so you don't have a background. Okay, so if you want an object to not have a background, you have to save it out as a PNG file. And there it is on our desktop, so we can open that with any photo viewing program. And notice there's your object and with no background behind it. So again, just to reiterate, When you want to create an object that doesn't have a background that you can import into a video editor or an animation program, and you don't want it to have a background, you must save it out as a PNG with no background. Okay, so you can see over here I have my tennis ball on my desktop there, and there's no background behind it. So now what we're going to do is create our composition in After Effects. So let's go ahead and go over to New Composition. We're going to go 720 by 540. And we're just going to, let's do a 1 second duration for now, just because I'm going to create the 1 second bounce here to start things off. So we're going to go 1 second there, 20 frames a second, that's our frame rate, 720 by 540, we're good to go there. So the next thing we want to do is bring in our ball. So we're going to go ahead and File, Import, File. And on the desktop, we're going to find the tennis ball. Here it is. And there's my tennis ball. Let's bring that down into Comp 1. And notice there I did put some highlight and shadow in there. You want to add some texture maybe to the ball if you can. And give it a little bit of texture and dimension, I guess. So let's make that smaller here. We're just going to open up the transformation tools and scale it down. Oh, I don't know. Let's go down a little smaller with it. Maybe about right there. And let's go ahead and start our position up on the top of the screen, let's say. So what we're going to do is have this thing just do a 1 second bounce to the ground and back up. So let's start by keyframing our position. Click the little stopwatch there. We're going to go over to 10 seconds, which is halfway. And we're going to bring this thing down. And notice there it's keyframing for us to about there. And then let's go end here. And we'll grab this first keyframe, Control C, and then just Control V. And so here's what we have so far. And notice there it's just doing a bounce following linear interpolation there. There's not really any speed change or anything. It's just bouncing at the same rate up and down. So the next thing we want to do is we want to apply a simulation of physics here. As the ball comes down, we probably want to watch it accelerate, but as it reaches the top, it's probably going to decelerate a little bit. So the one way to do that is to open up your graph editor. And notice here we've got the regular graph editor here. What we want to do is go down to the bottom of our screen here, click this little document that says choose graph type and options. So in the bottom of our graph, we're going to click that little list there, choose graph type and options. We're going to click there and we're going to choose edit speed graph. Okay, and then once we get to edit speed graph, what we can do is we can change this type of interpolation from linear to Bezier. So if you look down on the bottom here, we have hold, we have linear, which is where we are right now, I believe. We also have auto Bezier. So I'm going to click on auto Bezier. So click convert to auto Bezier, and then what we're going to do, let's try that again after they're selected. I think what you have to do is select it first. So you want to select your timeline and then click Auto Bezier. And now notice everything is more of a Bezier curve. So what I'm going to do is drag this down to 0 and drag this one down to 0 down here as well. And then I'm going to bring this one up. And what we're going to do is try to make a nice smooth transition here to where the speed will vary. And so what we're going to do is bring this over and down. Well, let's bring this over here. And let's bring this up to about there. Okay. And we're just going to make a nice smooth graph here that we can manipulate here. So we're going to get this to the top here. And notice here I can make this wider or narrower as I see fit. Okay, and we can also move this over. So we're looking at about 10 seconds into it. Now watch this, I can bring this down and then bring this one up, which is what we want to do. And bring this over. There we go. And so basically you're just adjusting these handles to create a nice smooth Bezier curve and have the ball just go into a nice smooth transition here from a rapid pace to a slower one, of course. And look at that, we have a nice bell curve there just by adjusting these handles in the smooth Bezier curve. Let's see what we have so far. Okay, just hit the home key. And notice there, look at that. It accelerates as it goes down, and as it comes up, it sort of decelerates. But I'm going to go ahead and make this a little narrower. I think maybe it might be a little bit too broad there. So you can narrow that down here. You can bring this up if you want it to go really fast and then slow. Let's try that. And look at that. It's sort of applying physics there. So we have a ball that sort of accelerates as it goes down, but then as it comes back up, it sort of decelerates, kind of following the laws of physics there. So that's a good 1 second bounce that I can use for the rest of this project. Okay, so once you get your bounce going and you've adjusted your gravity and your speed graph, the next step I think now would be to probably make the shadow as well. So first thing we're going to do is let's see here. Let's go ahead and move these points over here. We're going to move the ball kind of over a little ways here. Put those right on top of each other there. It's about right there. And then move this one over here. All I'm doing is adjusting the position of the ball over here. Haven't changed the physics or anything like that. Okay, perfect. So now what I'm going to do is bring in the tennis court so I can have a surface with which to work with for my shadow. So let's go ahead and file, import, file. So here you may want to bring in your background is what I'm trying to say here. And let's put the backboard or the court behind the ball here. Now when we play it, you can see the ball there bouncing. Let's bring that down a little bit more there. There you go. So now we can build the shadow off of that. Okay? Alright, so the next thing I want to do is make a new layer. So we're going to do layer, new, solid. And let's do like pretty much a black layer, right? Click OK. Black solid, there we go. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to draw on this layer, we're going to draw a circle about the size of the ball there. So I'm going to go up to the top here, and instead of the rectangle, I'm going to hold the mouse button down, grab the ellipse tool, and just draw my shadow based on the size of the ball. Okay. And so there we should see, there it is, black shadow there. And since the shadow is going to be on the ground, I'm going to have to distort it here a little bit. It should be coming off of the, oops. Instead of doing that, let's use the scale properties down here. I'm going to uncheck the chain here and just adjust. Oops, I'm in the wrong layer there, as you can see. Let's go to the black solid layer here. And we're just going to adjust the scale there. Again, I'm going to unlink the width and height dimensions by clicking that chain. And let's see what we got here. Okay, now we want to do the other dimension there. Let's bring this out just a little bit. And then here, scale it down about like that. And then over here let's lengthen it too a little bit. So about like that maybe. Okay, so I'm just sort of distorting it here a little bit. And then what's going to happen is the ball's going to come down and the shadow is going to just kind of return to it. So let's take a look at the tennis ball here. And we will see where it's going to go here. At 10 frames or so, it'll be right here. So we want that shadow maybe to be about right there as well. Okay. Maybe about there. Perfect. So right there, let's go ahead and put a keyframe there. So we're going to open up the shadow here in our position keyframe. We're going to position that there. Let's go back in time here and we're going to bring this over. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and bring this over a little bit more. I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. Maybe about there. And let's go ahead and go back to the beginning and we'll keyframe that there. Let's see here. Let's turn off our graph for a second. Okay, let's get rid of this keyframe here. Okay. And then this position keyframe, we're going to move this over just a little bit back here. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So then what we're going to do, see, what's that doing there? Okay, we don't want that keyframe here, so we're going to delete that. There we go. Okay. So we probably want to take this keyframe, Control C, hit end on the keyboard, Control V. And now we should have at least something that's going back to the, oops. Let's see, position. Let's try that again. Control C. Then we go to the end here and choose Control V. That should do it. I'm not sure why that keyframe is disappearing. Let's see here. So we got position here, position here. We need this one, Control C. And then Control V. Oops. Okay, there we go. So now we've got the ball bouncing and the shadow going there. So what I'm gonna do is go over here, go home. I'm gonna move this back just a little bit more like to about right there, I think. And then I'm gonna go ahead and delete this last keyframe. Select the first one again after I moved it. Control C to copy it. Hit end. Control V to paste it. Okay, now we should have the right length for the ball in the shadow. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. So the last thing I need to do with the shadow, I think, is to apply the physics again. So again, I'm going to go into the graph editor here, and we're going to make sure that our speed graph is showing. Edit speed graph, there it is. Click on position. And again, select your select your points here, or select your graph there, and then we're going to go ahead and change these to Bezier, Auto Bezier. There we go. And again, let's bring our ends down to 0, and we'll bring this up 10 up to the 10 spot here. We'll bring this up a little ways, maybe about right there. Let's bring this up for a second so we can see it. And then again, you're going to want to adjust your graph here in such a way. Let's do the same thing down here. Let's get that curve going there. Let's bring this up a little bit so we can see it better. There we go. And now we want to make this narrower here. Okay. There we go. That looks pretty good. And then bring that up. Let's see what we have so far here. It's not quite exactly what I want, but yeah, you can see physics there kind of being applied. Okay, and we can keep adjusting this if we need to. I like that. Let's bring this one in a little bit more. Same thing out here. Just kind of bring it in, bring it up. There we go. Looks pretty good right there. And so there we have a nice shadow too following the ball that we want to have keep going. And then the last thing I would probably do with the shadow is make it a little bit opaque or transparent. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's go to home. Again, we'll turn off our graph there. Let's go ahead and get the opacity on the shadow down just a little bit. Let's try that and see what that looks like. Now you can see it looks a little more like a shadow there. So that's probably the easiest way to do it, is once you get your ball set, your ball bounce, then you make your shadow on a solid layer and keyframe that, and also, you know, make sure the gravity of the shadow is matching the gravity of the ball. And then that'll allow us to move into the next part of the assignment, which is to make the illusion that the ball is moving through space. Okay, so now we have our ball and our shadow going there. Next step now is we want to make the ball bounce in a 5-second composition. So this one is only a 1 second, so what we're going to do is just put everything in a new composition, and we'll stretch this out to bounce for 5 seconds straight. So we're just going to go up to composition, choose new composition, and instead of a 1 second, we're going to change it to 5 here. So if you haven't done that, just make sure its duration is 5 seconds. Click OK. And so now what we're going to do is go back to comp 1 here and take our tennis ball, and we're going to copy that, Control C, and then go into comp 2 and just paste it 5 times. So now we have 5 tennis ball bounces there. And we're going to do the same thing with the shadow. So let's go back to comp 1, our black solid layer, Control C. We'll go back here, Control V 5 times. And the solid layer should be beneath the ball when they meet in the court. So I'm going to put this one down below. And we also, from comp 1, want to copy the tennis court. Control C. Let's go to comp 2. Control V, just so we can see the court and see the ball going for 5 seconds. So now when we play it there, we still got the 1 second. So what we need to do is move the black solid layers in between each tennis ball layer. So I'm going to take this layer, bring it up here, So between each tennis ball layer, there should be a shadow layer, correct? And so that looks about right there. And so if I go home there, yeah, they're still moving together. So now what we do is we go to this one here. Each one of these groups of layers should be at the second mark, right? So at 1 second, we've got to have a bounce. At 2 seconds, so I grab the ball in the shadow, move that to the 2 second mark. Right here. 3 seconds. 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're good there. So we have, oh yeah, the tennis court. So what we need to do there is just stretch this out to go all the way to 5 seconds. Okay, so now we have a 5-second bounce in comp 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we have the ball now doing a 5-second bounce and the shadow following it. So what we're going to do now is take that 5 seconds of bouncing ball and copying that into another, nesting that into another composition. So we're going to go up to composition, new composition again. Make sure it's 5 seconds in the same dimensions. We're good there. And then what we're going to do is copy comp 2 into comp 3. Except this time what we're going to do is we're going to delete, from comp 2 we're going to delete the tennis court. We don't want the background to be part of comp 3. We don't want the background to be embedded in comp 2. We just want the ball and the shadow on its own layer in comp 3. So now that we've deleted the background from comp 2, we can take comp 2 and drop it into comp 3. And to get the background back, we can just grab the tennis court from the project window here and drop that in. And now the tennis court is a separate layer from the ball and its bounces. So now the last step is just to get the ball to bounce from the background toward the foreground, and then maybe even off the screen. So let's go ahead and open up comp 2, and we're going to start by playing with the scale. So let's go ahead and bring that down. We'll scale that down a little bit, and that's going to force us to alter our position a little bit too. So let's bring the ball down here onto the court, maybe about there. Again, make sure you're at 0 before you start keyframing anything else. Let's hit the stopwatch on scale there, and then as this thing moves up each second, it's going to get bigger. Okay, by about 25, I guess. So it's about 60 something there, yeah. And then at 3 seconds, it'll be about, 78, 80, something like that. 4 seconds, 100, let's say. And then at 5 seconds, we'll have it be up to like something like that, 150. Okay, so basic scaling and then getting it in initial position will get you what you want it to see here. And you see how the ball's coming toward the screen there. Okay, and then if you look at this in the beginning, kind of looks like it goes over the net there. So let's have these scale up a little sooner maybe. Still kind of looks like it's, yeah. Let's move that in a little sooner. Maybe about right there. And let's move these away from each other a little bit more. Okay, let's try that. Okay, it looks pretty good. All right. All right, cool. So now we can do the same thing with position if we want. We can start it there, and then maybe by the time it gets to about here, it's going to be off the screen, let's say. Let's see what that does. Yeah, so you can scale it and then just maybe do a couple of position keyframes, and you can get that thing to kind of move toward the foreground and jump out of the scene there, or we can make it last a little longer there. Something like that. And so that's basically all we're doing there is we're nesting composition within composition. And we're getting a 5-second bounce, and then we're going to put that composition and nest that into another, and then just manipulate the scale and position of the ball until it appears that the ball is traveling through, a 3D space coming toward us.